Welcome to the Starzology Astrology Podcast. I am your host, Alison Price, and I'm here with my co-host, Arwynne O'Neill.
Hi, Alison. It's great to be here again.
It's great to have you once more. And in this time, we're going to be giving an overview of aspects, which is one of the four cornerstones of chart reading that I spoke about last time.
Absolutely.
And we're going to just go over a few of the main aspects and in general, and we may then delve a little deeper into individual aspects at a later date.
Yeah, it sounds great.
Okay.
So let's talk about where aspects come from, what they mean. Let's say you have the sun trine your moon in your chart, and that means that they're in a 120 degree angle to each other, which means that from the perspective of the Earth, your chart is basically a snapshot of the sky, of the solar system when you were born from the perspective of the Earth. And that's why we do, Earth-centric versus like sun-centric. And that's a whole nother ball of wax.
Right.
Rabbit hole, whatever you want to say. But yeah, so the aspects are the number of degrees that each of the planets are in a relationship to each other. And some of them won't be in a relationship to each other at all. Like Mars might not aspect anything in your chart, or it might, be in a 90 degree square angle to Neptune, for example, or, what have you. So all of the planets in your chart will have a relationship to each other or not, depending on exactly what spot in the zodiac they occupy.
Yeah. So each chart's different then, and it really depends what day you were born.
And time.
And time, whether or not you've got this aspect or that aspect or the other aspect.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And so the zodiac obviously is 360 degrees. It's divided into, little 1 degree marks and 12 houses. And all of your planets will fall into one of those houses, and they'll be at a specific place. So, for example, my sun is at 5 degrees of Virgo. My Mercury is at 0 point whatever degrees of Virgo, and so on. All of the planets will occupy a very specific place within that 360 degrees, and from there you can just determine the relationships they have to each other.
Right.
So that's what aspects are.
Okay.
Roughly.
Yeah. So
awkwardly.
Okay. So in general, we talk about, we have aspects of different kind of categories. We've got more important aspects and less important aspects. So I think the first 5 major aspects, also known as the Ptolemaic aspect after Claudius Ptolemy, there we've got the conjunction, the opposition, the trine, the square, and the sextile. Yeah. And we'll have a little chat about each of those.
Yeah.
And what their degrees are and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start with the conjunction.
Let's start with the conjunction, which I always believe is the strongest aspect anyway.
Totally. And it's got the widest orbs, which means let's go into orbs.
Does it? What orbs are you using?
Well, usually it's like for the sun, moon, and ascendant, I think people tend to go a little bit wider with the orbs. That's like 8 degrees-ish. Some people go up to 10, and that's, maybe okay, depending on what it is. I have a couple of...
So you have flexible... Yeah, okay, so we're talking 2 different topics here. You have flexible orbs on that. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people do. Like when I get... When I've had certain software packages, it actually comes saying, do you want the sun, moon, and ascendant to have a little bit wider orbs? And that's kind of by default. It'll be like maybe 2 degrees wider.
Absolutely. Personally, I never do that.
Oh, interesting. No. Okay. Do you go...
8.
8 for everything?
Well, no, 8 for conjunctions.
Okay, got it. Yeah, 8 for conjunctions.
And if it's 8 degrees in 1 minute, it's not a conjunction,
right?
Because we're drawing the line.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
And for this is what's interesting about.
This is a debate that astrologers always have.
It's a debate, but it's also I think it actually depends too on what you're reviewing. Like if you're doing a consultation, it makes sense to keep things simple. Because the wider the orbs are, the more aspects you're going to have.
That's right.
The more you have to define for the client.
Exactly.
And if it's a wide conjunction, or God forbid a wide square or sextile, they don't need to know. Like you could pull everything in, and then your consultation is going to be 3 hours long.
Exactly.
But interestingly, one of the widest orbs I've seen accepted is in reviewing like historical cycles. Richard Tarnas's book, Cosmos and Psyche, his orbs go up to like 15 degrees at some points, because he's talking about like these, massively long generational world-changing event sort of aspects, like Uranus square Pluto, or the conjunctions of like Saturn and Neptune, which define entire eras in history. So it makes sense to widen the orbs for that kind of thing. But less sense to, to do that for a consultation.
I do believe that astrologers get to choose the orbs they want to use. And of course, you can have any orb you like. Personally, I never go past 8.
Yeah.
Mainly because I suppose I'm teaching astrology. The idea is that the tighter the orb, the more impact the aspect will have anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, and it's one of my pet peeves that wide orbs bring loose astrology. But anyway, that's just me. But I know certainly some programs will come with the wide orbs built in, which I then take out. But anyway, so.
It's nice that most of them let you sort of tweak them to your heart's content.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
okay.
So the conjunction, let's talk about what that means.
Okay, so with the conjunction, I've just got a few keywords here that I like to use. The first one is that they blend, the two planets blend their energies together.
Yeah.
And so it's like having two balls of plasticine, one is red and one is blue, and you squish them together and it becomes purple.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have synergy, which means 1 + 1 = 3. So together they are worth more.
Yeah.
And anything that is in close proximity bring them close together.
Yeah.
Clearly. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any conjunctions in your chart?
Absolutely. I let's see. What's my favorite conjunction? I mean, my Sun and Mercury are conjunct in Virgo, which is definitely, a personality, what's the word? Like a
attribute?
Yeah, a key attribute to my personality.
Okay.
That really defines me as a person. I've also got, you wouldn't consider this a conjunction, but in some orbs, I have Venus conjunct Pluto, which may or may not say something about my personality as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, stand by your orbs, Arwynne. Stand by your orbs.
I mean,
don't listen to me. Yeah.
I've also got Venus conjunct Uranus, but they're both like 8.5-ish degrees, so arguable. Yeah. So
going back to this, let's talk about this Mercury conjunct Sun. So typically when we talk about aspects, you want to weigh which planet is more stronger, which planet is stronger, I should say, and they're both in Virgo. So
yeah, I mean Mercury is one of the if the dispositors of my chart. It kind of comes down to like a tie between Venus and Mercury. We've talked about this in the past. It's kind
and
of
your dispository, interesting.
Yeah, dispository. Yeah, so Mercury, arguably, since I am a Virgo, it's kind of
yes, and I think
ahead.
I do think you resonate very much with Mercury and being clear and. To a great detail, often about what you're trying to explain or whatever. Yeah.
Possibly pedantic and
Yeah.
But I've also got it's kind of a conjunction, like it's a stellium of Mercury, the Sun, and the Moon.
Okay.
But they're all like conjunct each other in Virgo for me. So
it says who you are.
A little cluster.
Quite good, yeah.
What about you?
So I have a Uranus conjunct the Sun. It's a tight conjunction. So I am an astrologer. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
Coming through, and often I was always the immigrant and the alien and the one that didn't fit in, or call it what you will.
Mm-hmm.
But the fringe person. So that's coming through. I wouldn't say I was fashionable, but when I was younger, I was.
Yeah. I've heard about some of the outfits.
So definitely there. I do tap into I like to be original and creative, and so be it. It's not for everyone, but that's one of the conjunctions of my chart. Interesting.
Definitely.
Okay, so the next aspect we're going to talk about is the opposition.
Yes. Yeah.
So this is 180 degrees, so it's two planets on the opposite side of the charts to each other.
Exactly. It's the flip side of the conjunction.
It absolutely is. And I have a couple of keywords I want to bring in for oppositions here, which is, so the next aspect we're going to talk about is the opposition.
Yeah.
This is 180 degrees apart.
Yes.
And a couple of the keywords I have for that is projection, where you project across from the self to the other.
Yeah.
And two planets that are opposition may flip-flop, and you may lean towards one side and then lean to the other side later on.
Yeah.
But this aspect is an aspect of resistance. It's what we would call a hard aspect.
Yes.
And two planets that are in opposition challenge each other.
Yes, definitely. They're in the same polarity, but they're obviously in different elements.
Yes.
And they are often very, very different
Yes.
in character. Like, for example, Virgo and Pisces. Yeah.
So planets are opposite. It's like at a full moon, you've got the sun on one side, the moon's on the other side.
Yeah.
There's a tension
Yeah.
that we get at the full moons.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. Do you have any oppositions in your chart?
I do. Actually, let me just read a couple of keywords here as
Oh,
well,
yes.
because just these are super interesting. I've got something about people who have a lot of oppositions or important, strong oppositions in their chart. Seek out people who mirror their own internal struggles, or they project, as you said, they project their own struggles onto other people. They learn about themselves through interactions with others more than, the average person. And often, opposition can cause them to swing from one side to the other of an argument. So if you're, if you have a lot of oppositions in your chart, you may learn more about life and yourself through your relationships with other people because of that opposition.
Yes, and I do think the toughest opposition really is the sun opposition moon, because then you've got your
gosh,
needs and your wants are in opposition to each other.
And it brings in the whole childhood thing too, where maybe your parents were
Yes.
at war with each other, or they used you as a sort of a pawn between them when they disagreed. Go ask daddy. Oh, daddy said no. Well, I can definitely say yes then, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So you do have that. It's planets in opposition. That is a hard aspect. It's a challenging aspect. There's no doubt about it. You'd be dealing with that. And because of the projection, the idea is that you stand on the one side and project to the other side. Oh, well, it's all your fault.
Yeah.
And then you stand on the other side and, well, actually, if you hadn't done this, it would have been the other way around. So it can be a challenging aspect, but certainly they would be dealing with it, I think.
Yeah. I do actually, as you say, I have a few pretty close oppositions. One of them is my ascendant opposite Mars. So that means Mars is in my 7th house. And yes, that means you can pity all of my male companions because I am a handful. But but at the same time, it is one of those like kind of you complete me sort of things where, I've got the Mars in the 7th house, which is, represents like the male, which is obviously that means my relationships are one of the most important parts of my life. It's always going to be
interesting,
vitally important.
Yes.
Like, maybe the most important thing in my life is my relationship. And that's always been true ever since my very first boyfriend at a very tender age. But yeah, do we bicker? Yes. Sometimes people, not people, because most people seem to think I have wonderful relationships, like from an outside view. And I do 100%. People who are sensitive to like people raising their voices tend to be like, oh my God, what, you guys are,
I know, I've heard it. I've experienced
it. My mother, she's a very, very sensitive, Sagittarius with a lot of planets in Libra, and she's like, oh my God, the raised voices. But that's just the way it's almost like how kittens will fight and they'll kick each other with their little legs, but they love each other, Yeah, I mean, we don't actually fight about important things, which is funny. We just, it's like you just sharpen your claws on them.
Oh, I see. Interesting.
We just bicker about little, stupid, unimportant things.
Okay.
But we agree about all the big things. That's,
Interesting. Yeah, that's quite an opposition, that one, isn't it?
Yeah. It's funny, though, because I don't think I could be in a relationship with someone who didn't like to sort of verbally spar like that. If they just, were the kind of person who would like just storm out and leave every time we got into an argument. Oh, I would hate that. That would drive me mental. That would be the worst.
Right.
Someone who wouldn't just engage in a verbal argument,
goodness.
like who just didn't want to even.
Here speaks Mercury conjunct the Sun as well. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Like someone didn't want to hash it out. That's the worst nightmare.
Well, that's one expression of how to use an opposition on the positive side. Then.
Yeah. And it's not about fighting. I mean, let's not get out of hand. But yeah, just the verbal hashing things out for sure.
Okay.
It's definitely a big part of my personality. What about you? Any oppositions?
I have the opposition. The only opposition worth talking about is I've got the Sun opposition Chiron.
Yeah.
And that's actually from the first house to 8. So the Sun dominates. There's no question about it. It will be now and again. I think, oh, did I do that wrong? But clearly, I push on regardless. It's just how it is. Yeah.
Yeah. I've got Chiron up as a few things as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just one of those things most people do have, but that's all I have, to be honest, regarding aspects. Not every chart has all the aspects, and this is what we're seeing now, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next aspect we're going to talk about is the trine.
Yeah.
And this is the 120-degree aspect.
Yes. So anything that is trine is going to be in the same element. So if you have something in Leo, you'll be trine if you have something else in Aries or Sagittarius, because they're all fire signs. If you have something in Libra, it's going to be trine the other air signs of Gemini and Aquarius, etc., etc.
Yeah, so this is it's the easy aspect, isn't it?
It's the easiest, yeah.
Yeah, some keywords I have here is for the trine is ease, which is straightforward. It brings equilibrium to a chart. If you've got a lot of tension, the trine will release that.
Yeah.
It soothes any tensions. It can be a passive aspect that just kind of sits there because you might be dealing with your squares and oppositions first and letting the trines just sit there. And it does suggest that you have an easygoing life. I think we spoke about this before with the other aspects too.
Yeah, and of course it's not about, it's not, unless you have nothing but trines in your chart, in which case, wow.
Yeah.
But it's like if you have, let's say you have Venus trine Neptune.
Yeah.
That means, like your love life is going to be like this blissful dream, or you're going to be constantly deluding yourself. Like it's,
which might be the same thing.
Which might be the same thing. Either way, you won't know. It's fine. Or, just artistic, you've got the fashion sense.
Yes.
It all is just a natural thing. It comes naturally to you. People are like, oh, where'd you get that sweater? And you're like, oh, you knitted this. And you're like, what's the big deal? And people are like, holy, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Why don't you go into business knitting? And you're like, what? This little thing?
That little thing? Yeah.
That's
good. I think trines, they support a chart, but they're not always the first thing you go to or lean on.
Right. Absolutely.
And do you have any trines in your chart?
I actually have a lot. Strangely. I mean, because I do have all of that stuff in Virgo, and that is trine a whole bunch of things.
Mm-hmm.
Mars, all three of those Virgo planets are trine my Mars in Taurus.
Right.
And then that Mars in Taurus is also, let's see, what is it trine? Oh, it's also trine. Is that Chiron? Yeah, no, that's my North Node. Yeah, so I mean, arguably, if you consider the North Node something you can have in a grand trine, I have a grand trine with my Sun, North Node, and Mars, which are all at 5 degrees of the water. The Earth signs.
The Earth.
It's an Earth trine, yeah, but with the North Node. Some people don't consider the North Node something it can go into a major aspect like that, but yeah. It's my only grand trine.
Exactly.
So go with it.
As I say, astrologers choose their own orbs and what they're going to incorporate in these things. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you?
Yeah. So I only have one trine in my chart.
Wow.
It's Saturn trines Pluto. So I know. So I'm thinking, well, at least the bad boys are just behaving themselves. If I leave them quietly, they don't bug me.
No kidding. Mine's square, and it's a 0.35 aspect.
Wow.
It's a tight square. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's an interesting thing that you've got that and I have the other.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't really have any problem with Saturn anyway. It's in its own sign and it's only got soft aspects to it. So it just kind of behaves.
Nice.
And Pluto is not really bugging me either. That's not really one of my challenges. So yeah.
Yeah.
So I've got my one and only trine. I'll take that. Thank you very much.
Really? No kidding.
Yeah.
I've also got let's see. I have Jupiter trine Venus.
Nice.
Yeah. And also Jupiter trine Pluto.
And how do you think that expresses itself?
I mean, I do obsess a little bit about my appearance. I'm not going to lie. I started wearing makeup at a very young age, as soon as my mother would allow me to, wear tinted lip gloss.
But you always presented beautifully.
Oh,
There's none of the sweatpants and flip-flops for you.
Well, I mean, I have sweatpants, but I tend to, I like things to match. I like,
Right.
I'm never, ever out without lipstick, at least. That's the one thing. They say, I mean, I'm not an old lady yet, but they do have this thing where, like, old ladies, this is a thing, will pare their makeup routine down to one item. And you can notice this when you're out in public. Sometimes it's the eyebrows, sometimes it's the lashes, sometimes it's the lipstick. I will definitely be one of those where it's the lipstick.
Right,
for sure.
Right. Okay.
That's going to be the last thing to be scraped off my body.
Oh my God.
Eventually. Yeah.
Even when you're in your coffin, they'll have to do your makeup. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, they won't have to. The lipstick will be indelible. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So what we're saying, that's the Venus trine Jupiter. Yeah, why not? Let's go with that.
Yeah.
All right. So the next aspect we're going to chat about is the square. So this is the 90-degree aspect. It's a hard aspect. Causes a lot of internal tension. But this is what I call the aspect that gets you off the couch.
You do, yeah. I've quoted you a bunch of times with that.
Yeah, it just, okay, you're sitting there, and eventually someone says, what about this and that? Oh, yeah. And you get off the couch, you go and do it.
Do you think the square is harder than the opposition? Or about the same in different ways?
Yeah. The squares, I believe, are internal dilemmas that you have with yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas the oppositions are external dilemmas you're having with other people and them.
100%. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Totally.
So if you've got a lot of squares, you're saying, should I do this? Did I do that? Why don't I do this? Let me start again. Do these things. And you're constantly addressing. But if you do have many squares and oppositions, and these are called the hard aspects, you are constantly attending to squares and oppositions way ahead of any trines or sextiles or anything else in your chart. You're going to go there first and expend your energy dealing with these planets that you have that are square or opposed.
Absolutely, yeah.
So a few keywords for the square is internal dilemmas, difficult. You're actively attempting to fix it. There is quite a bit of resistance, and it creates unease within the planets that are in the square.
Yeah. My keywords here are tension. Tension is needed in order to stimulate action, but too much tension results in stress.
Yes.
The planets that are involved in the square are acting at cross purposes.
Yes.
Like I've described this before as two cars come up to an intersection, and in the absence of a traffic light, they kind of have to like look at each other and decide which one is going to go, and maybe the communication is not that great, and they could have a collision. It's more difficult when you're younger, apparently, because you eventually get used to them, and actually these are the character building aspects.
Right.
Whereas the trine can be too easy, something that could just come naturally to you. The square is something that you have to learn and master, and so eventually you will get really good at those things, and those can be your superpowers.
Yeah. This is great. Yeah. Do you have any squares in your chart?
Oh boy, do I. Yeah. I've got that Sun, Moon, Mercury stellium is all square Neptune, which is a bit of a nightmare. But so my Neptune in the second house, which we've talked about, is square all of that stuff in my 10th house, my Sun. And
so challenges with producing second house.
Yeah, exactly. So finances, whatever, things of value, and it's all just kind of in a weird, murky, nebulous mystery sort of fluffy zone of Neptune.
Wow.
Yeah.
So there's quite a few squares there. Interesting.
Yeah. But, I mean, it could also, I like to think of the positive side of Neptune as well, being, who knows, maybe it's
the artistic side, clearly.
Artistic, yeah.
I mean, all the artwork you've done, and we've spoken about in the past as well, right?
Yeah.
And the actual art you do in your dancing
is, oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's all this sort of mythological and goddessy kind of.
Did you do ballet as a child?
It was really, my mother got me into a ballet class once, and I didn't, because she actually was quite into ballet for a while and did choreography and was a ballet teacher, as well as a dancer. But I couldn't dance slow enough. I just kind of wanted to like leap around. And I had the same problem with gymnastics. It was just a little too structured. I kind of would rather just kind of,
interesting. Yeah.
I don't know.
Tapping into that dance. So now at this age, you're actually being able to express it.
Yeah,
differently.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I do like to go out dancing.
Yes.
Just for fun.
Yes. Yeah. Well,
kind of the techno and all that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. but yeah, so those squares are there. But then also I have Mars square Jupiter, which is an interesting one that we've talked about a little bit. And that's a sort of a weird aspect about. I mean, it can be about gambling. For me, it's not. But yeah, there's that. And then what else do I have? Oh yeah, Saturn square Pluto, which we've talked about. That's a super.
It's interesting that you've got the Saturn square Pluto and I've got the Saturn trine Pluto.
Really
that's
interesting.
Kind of interesting.
Yeah, those are generational, and that's that speaks to like when I was born, there was like the oil crisis. There was like just a lot of like terrorism going on, and sort of it was a dark time in the early 70s.
OPEC and all that.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. What about you? Squares?
Oh, I've got a Mercury square my moon.
Oh, boy.
I know.
Yeah.
So I think I can tell a dramatic story, or the words I use can be seen as dramatic because it really is. Mercury's in Leo. And putting it all with emotion. And, I'll walk in and say, you'll never guess what. And really it's just, milk's gone down 2 cents or something. It's something totally mundane, but I somehow have to present it with this kind of guess what,
Yeah.
And
Well, I mean, I think that's probably enabled you to, be a self-published author, etc. Like,
probably.
Gosh, we should all be self-published.
Yes, guess what? We're doing a podcast.
Yeah.
We are. Yes, we are, And here we go, and off we go.
Yeah.
So you put it all behind, we'll start tomorrow and off we went, right?
Yeah, totally.
So that's Mercury square the moon for me. So
Nice.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, so then the fifth and final major aspect is the sextile, which is 60 degrees, and this is again an aspect of ease and pleasantness.
Yeah.
So some keywords I have for sextiles are latent talents, because this is an aspect that really lies there doing nothing unless you tap into it. It's totally to do with awareness, and it will offer assistance against the hard aspects, and it is an aspect that allows you to withstand stress in your life, and the stress in your life will come from your squares and your oppositions.
Yeah, interesting.
So if you've got a couple of squares but there's a sextile coming off one of the planets, that's where the ease will go.
Totally. Yeah.
It's a great aspect. What are your thoughts on the sextile?
I 100% agree. And the keywords I have are they're about talent and about ease, but not the super ease of the trine. It's more about just things that come naturally to you. So natural talents, natural tendencies, and something that we had said in a previous podcast was something about how people who have a lot of sextiles have a lot of interests.
Yes.
And they can be like a sort of jack of all trades, or like the Renaissance man kind of person, which I think is really interesting. Yeah. And they can be communicative and relationship friendly. So if you have them in...
It's a great aspect to have.
Yeah. In a synastry chart, like sextiles are hugely important, and they can really, reveal hidden talents and places where you can lean into, and away from the hard aspects and sort of like lean into the sextiles.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Do you have any sextiles in your chart?
I do. And it's interesting how we talked about how all of my personal planets are kind of square Neptune. But funnily enough, they're also all sextile Saturn.
Right.
So what's the solution to, Neptune squares? Well, it's hard work, apparently. So,
paying your dues.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And exactly. I've also got, Mars sextile Saturn. Yeah, Mars, Mercury, and the Sun are all sextile Saturn.
Great. Yeah, so there it is.
It's just work.
It's just, yes, probably, absolutely, is. Yeah.
And Neptune is also sextile Jupiter, so there's that creativity thing again.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
How about you?
So the sextiles I have the sextile I have that I want to talk about really is Mars is sextile the moon. So Mars is in Virgo. It's the workaholic. It really is. It's morning, noon. I get up and I'm at my desk, at 5 a.m. and this sort of thing. Yeah. And I pour it all in.
Yeah. You probably work harder than most people I know. Well, honestly.
Well, it's all the Virgo. I'm telling you, it's all the Virgo planets. It's just continuously trying to keep going with whatever it is that I happen to be. Projects are on the go. It's not always the same thing. And I won't always know what I'm going to be working on when I sit down, because I've got multiple options of things. It just depends how I feel that day. So there's the moon coming in, whether I'm going to work on astrology or art or my craft or some drawings or whatever it is, Yeah. But definitely I can't get through the day without having done some work. And that's part of Virgo, and it's so true. Yeah. I even like work before I go to work sometimes, but it's all in the morning. It's never in the evening. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Okay, so now that we've covered the 5 major Ptolemaic aspects, we're going to talk a little bit about the 4 minor aspects. Yeah. And first up, we're going to talk about the 12th harmonic, which are those where you divide the chart by 12. So we've got 2 in here, and this is the quincunx and the semisextile. Yeah. Now, the glyphs for the quincunx and the semisextile is the same shape, but just flipped upside down.
Yeah, it's like a little V with a line under it and a little TP with a line over it.
Exactly. Yeah. So your semisextile is what it says. It's half a sextile, so it's 30 degrees. And some keywords I have for this are: it's an unsettling and disruptive. It can bring tension, and the planets want to redirect their energy away from each other.
Yeah. Interesting. And do you use this in your interpretations when you consult?
I will if it's a paying client, yes, but otherwise I'll just stick with the main 5.
Yeah. And how tight would the orbs be? I would think.
The orb for a semisextile is 2 degrees.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Cool. That's what I.
Sextile, which I should have said earlier, is 4 degrees, but the other 4 are 8. Yeah.
Yeah.
So semisextile and quincunx is 2 degrees.
Yeah. And I would think all the minor aspects, pretty small orbs.
All 2 degrees.
Yeah. 2 degrees. Exactly.
All 4 of them, I use 2 degrees on those. So, of course, you will get people who use wider orbs, this and that. As I say, you can. This is a debate astrologers always have. It's like saying, do these pants make me look fat? Yes, you can squeeze into them, and you can squeeze an orb in if you must.
Right.
But you've got to take your stand on these things.
For sure. And I know some people who swear by the quincunx, though. It's got a huge following.
Oh, yes. It's one of those annoying aspects.
Yeah.
But anyway, so... Okay, Arwynne, so do you have any semisextiles in your chart?
I don't. Do you?
I do, actually. I've actually got 3, and I'm just going to highlight one at the moment, which is going to be the Sun is semisextile to Venus. So it's kind of one of those niggly aspects, and it's not necessarily difficult, not necessarily hard. The Sun is, again, dominant in Leo, so it really does overshadow that, and I think in a way people don't see it to start with.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to tap into people, or should I put it this way? People always think I'm richer than I am.
Interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the presentation is, a wealthy woman, but it's the reality is something else. So that's kind of interesting there.
Totally.
Always dealt with that.
Yeah.
Right. So let's then move on to the quincunx. So this is an aspect of 150 degrees.
Yeah.
And so it's 5/12 of the chart.
Right.
And do you have any quincunxes in your chart?
I do. I have the Sun, quincunx, Jupiter.
Jupiter, yeah. So the keywords I have for quincunx are adjustments, which is the main keyword, and awkwardness and unsupportive. So these 2 planets are likely to continuously need adjustment. So you've got the Sun and Jupiter. So likely what you want, and how you want to grow will not always necessarily you won't be on the same page with that. So you'll have to make adjustments continuously. Is it Sun? Is it Jupiter? And it does depend which planet is stronger in your chart, whether it is the Sun or Jupiter.
Oh, well, obviously the Sun is way stronger.
Yeah. Because Jupiter's retrograde anyway.
Yeah.
So, interesting there. So, as I say, it's a minor aspect. It just adds a bit of flavour to the chart.
Yeah, but that does totally make sense.
Yeah. So then if we look at the 2 other minor aspects of the 8th harmonic, we've got the semi-square, which is 45 degrees, and the sesquiquadrus at 135.
Right.
So for keywords on the semi-square are, it's difficult, it's half a square, it's difficult.
Right.
It's unstable because the square is more stable. It's like how you can build a house with square bricks, but you can't build a house with 45-degree bricks, so it's got that instability with it. But it is a persisting aspect that will continuously kind of nag away at situations.
Yeah.
And do you know if you have any semi-squares in your chart?
I do. Let me just see.
Yes, you've got Sun semi-square Uranus, it seems.
Well.
How do you feel about working with your uniqueness against your self?
I mean, I guess it is a struggle because as we've talked about in the past, there's always, needing to have a job and working
same old story.
Versus doing something that expresses the creativity or doing something that's, for the good of the world,
yes.
Or the planet.
I remember once you were counting homeless people or something.
Oh yeah, I used to volunteer to do the homeless counted. I mean, honestly, that's not something you'd want to do as a full-time job because how depressing and thankless would that be? Yeah.
That is but then if we look at it if we're taking Uranus as representing astrology, I mean, you've been working at astrology for quite some time and continuously honing your craft and sharpening your axe, as it were.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very, very strong hobby.
It's a strong hobby.
With a hint of vocation, but not,
It's a strong hobby. And here we are doing an astrology podcast. So a very strong hobby.
Exactly.
Excellent.
What about you?
So I don't have any semi-squares in my chart, so
lucky you.
Dodged a bullet there. Right, yeah. And then the next one is the sesquiquadrat at 135 degrees.
Yeah.
And the keywords I've got for this are tension again, and it's a challenge. These 2 planets are challenging each other.
Yeah.
So this is a square and a half. It's the same principle as the semi-square.
Yeah.
And I don't know, do you have any semi-squares in your chart?
Oh, probably.
No, I don't see any.
All right.
So which is great there.
Yeah.
We'll go with that. And do I have any? Yes, I've got the Sun is Saturn.
Oh, wow.
Again, as I've said in the past, Saturn's very a low-key planet for me, and the Sun dominates, and really nothing can get past it.
Yeah.
So, there is a challenge to, I wouldn't say sticking to the rules, but I'm aware what the rules are.
Yeah.
And I'll bend them when it suits me.
Yeah.
But no, not necessarily. I won't.
Yeah.
I'm the sort of person who, if the light is red, I'll stand on the road even though there's no cars coming.
Oh, geez, I'm the opposite.
Yeah, I know. So that's what I do. So there you have it. Sun, Saturn. Yeah, no, I wouldn't do that. Yeah,
it's that super ego, as Freud would have said. The super ego is strong with you. Yeah.
I don't know if that's good or not, but anyway, yeah. So that's the sesquiquadrat.
Yeah, I mean, ask a traffic warden if that's a good thing. They would say it's a great thing.
There you go. So now we're getting on to the lesser used aspects, and there are quite a few in this sequence. We've got the, when you divide the chart by 5, you've got the quintiles and the biquintiles. Mm. And then if you divide it by 7, you've got the septiles, the biseptile and the triseptile, which I never use.
Yeah.
And then you've got the noval, which is at 40 degrees, I believe. And then you've got the decile at 36 degrees. So of the lesser used aspects, I only concentrate on the quintiles.
Yes. Yeah, that makes sense. And any of these would only be like 1 degree orb. So really only if they're
it's got to
right
be
on top
tight.
of each
It's got to
other.
be tight.
Yeah.
And so it seems that we had a look at your chart, and you do seem to have a quintile between.
Yes, it's between the moon and Saturn.
Yeah. So quintile it's a great aspect for creativity, originality, and genius.
Wow.
And it is beyond the back burner. It's on the shelf next door to the back burner. If you've got your main aspects on the front burners, you've got your minor aspects on the back burner. These lesser used aspects they're still in the pantry.
They're just simmering away.
Yeah, they're on the side, not even on that warm plate. They're not even getting.
They're not even under the little lamp.
Yeah, but the point is that astrologically, if you can tap into this combination of what did you say it was?
The Sun and Saturn.
The Sun and Saturn to bring things together. To bring.
I mean, honestly, what I think of when I think of that is all of my little crafting capabilities, like how.
You're sewing beautiful jackets with lapels.
Yeah. I'm not mega creative when it comes to sewing. Yeah. I don't envision like these new things that have never been done. I wouldn't be able to go on that, what's it called, that show where the fashion reality show, which I watched like several seasons of, and I can't remember the name of it. Project Runway. I would never, the pressure, I would die. But I can like take a pattern and I can craft something perfectly.
Yes.
I can craft, jewelry. I can do all these things, but it's not a creative thing. It's more of a crafty thing.
Okay.
And I'm super good with my hands, and I'm super good with like executing someone else's pattern.
Oh, that's fine.
But yeah.
So the pattern would be the Saturn, giving you the pattern. Here's the structure.
Yeah.
Cut out all these 5 pieces, sew it together in this order, and you can probably put IKEA stuff together, can you?
Hell yeah.
Oh, because
hell yeah. Half of my furniture is from IKEA.
Well, yes. I think the world has furniture from IKEA.
For sure.
Yeah. So that's an interesting one. I love the quintiles, and when I'm doing consultations, I'm always looking for quintiles because it gives people a tap into what they used to be interested when they were younger as kids, saying, I always wanted to do this or do that, or I was interested in ballet or dolphins or whatever it is.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And you can tap right back to that.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah. Because it's all these people who are super interested in Lego or
Pokemon.
Yes, certain video games. Like I still knew people who were like obsessed with Mario Brothers. I was obsessed with Barbie. And I, like, of course.
Fashion,
and I also had, like, back in the 80s, we had these things called fashion plates, which were, like, these little Etch-a-Sketch type things where you had all these different plastic plates and you put them together to make an outfit. And then you, like, rub a crayon across it and it creates this little drawing. And then you can color it in. And so amazing.
So I suppose you had those paper dolls where you put paper things
Oh my God, so many paper dolls. Like,
there you go.
Ridiculous. And also those old historical paper dolls. Mm-hmm. They had this huge series of them. There's like the World War II fashion, the Victorian fashion. I had a ton of them.
And you see, that is what you did back then when you were 5 or 6 or 7 years old. that kind of interest that you're tapping back into now is what you've brought forward and you bring into your art, bringing into your dance, and it's still there in Arwynne's chart. And if you can tap into it, it's always a great thing. And I find quintiles are always good things to bring out for clients because they can say, oh, I used to really want to do that, or I used to raise guinea pigs, or whatever. Right. You never know what they're going to say.
Right.
But there's always something in there that, when I was a kid, and that's what you can reach out.
Interesting. I guess that's one way of looking. I never overspend money on clothes because I always think, well, gee, couldn't I just go to a thrift store, get this and this and this, combine them with a sewing machine and make something that's even better and more unique and like not a cookie cutter.
Well, you're certainly a unique dresser. You don't dress like everybody else. Absolutely. Yeah.
Great. That started very early. Just ask my mother. She called me a Holly Hobby little freak when I was a kid because I would just layer dresses on top of pants with I did not care if the patterns matched at all.
What's Holly Hobby?
Oh my gosh. Well, in the 70s, there was this thing called Holly Hobby, and it was basically this little patchwork hippie girl who had it was a cross between Little House on the Prairie meets...
And Bratz or something.
Well, it was Bratz without the sex.
Okay.
Yeah, Bratz without the sex. It was like a little artsy craftsy...
Or like the Cabbage Patch or something came in as well.
But it's very much like a lot of clothes. Just
a lot of clothes. Okay,
a lot of layers, a lot of patterns, a lot of prints.
Cottagecore sort of thing, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. Cottagecore, that's a good
Oh, interesting. Yeah, so on the quintile suite of aspects, I do have a biquintile. It's my only one, and it's between our friend Mercury and Saturn, bringing, wrestling the words to the page.
Yeah, you do.
It took me years to get to it because I spent a lot of years doing other things. And when I got to the time to be doing what Alison wanted to do, suddenly I was able to produce
multiple self-published books, coloring books, art.
40 books and counting,
podcasts, etc.
Here we go. Yeah. And it's to do with Mercury. It's the ability to share the message, share the word. And you want to do it through, I want to do it to inspire others to have something to think about during the week as they've listened to the podcast and they go and think, hey, let me look into that. Hey, what about this? And it makes other people go forth inspired. And that's really what
And it's not just about the ideas. It's in a tangible way, like sometimes with an actual physical thing, Saturn. Yeah. I love it.
So that's it. But the other lesser used aspects, the septiles, the noviles, and the deciles, I never go there. I just know what they are. And, you can if you want to, but I don't. So, And as I said, the quintiles have only come in the last 10 years. And I think, I like tapping into that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, Arwynne, so we've gone through all of the aspects that we're going to go through today. And from our listeners' point of view, what would you suggest which aspect would you say they're focusing on first in general?
First would have to be the conjunction, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree, yes.
Probably second most important, and this might just be because I've got so many, it would be the square.
Right.
Because it's such a personality defining and sort of hard but important aspect. And then trines and, whatnot after that.
Yes.
But really, it depends on what's the strongest in their chart. And you can obviously, in certain software, you can sort things by the strength of the aspect. And that's a really good way of looking at it too. Mm-hmm. Not just going by, here's all the sun's aspect, here's all the moons, but actually just sorting it by strength and going, okay, read the first 10.
Yes.
And that's,
exactly.
That'll really give you a great idea.
Yeah, I agree. The conjunctions are hugely important. Yeah. They are defining. They're bringing two powerful energies together, especially if they're planets. You can still, of course, get conjunctions to the points as well, but two planets in conjunction have a lot to say in any chart. So I think they are the first things you want to kind of learn, interpret, understand, and decide which planet is strongest in that conjunction and go from there.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this has been great. We've given an introduction to aspects. No doubt we're going to circle back around and develop this topic a lot more because there's so much more to say about aspects on so many levels. Lots of other topics coming up. And right, so I just want to thank our listeners. If you've got this far, that is absolutely wonderful. If you found some value in this episode, please do share it with your friends or family or anyone you think may be interested in the astrology we have to offer.
Absolutely.
So thanks, Arwynne. Thanks for being here. It's been great again.
Thank you, Alison. It's been wonderful. See you next time.
See you next time. Thanks so much for getting this far through the episode. I just want to take a moment to tell you about the two main options of my astrology services. So the first one is coaching. If you are an aspiring astrologer, and by that I mean someone who's perhaps a hobbyist astrologer or someone who's learning astrology or a student, or you've got a few books and you've been doing it for a while, but perhaps you need a little bit of help to bring it all together, then maybe getting some astrological coaching from me would be the answer for you. The astrology coaching I offer is a 1-hour session on Zoom, and it's tailored to answer your particular questions. For example, if you have issues with natal chart readings, we can go there. Or if you're having problems working with your forecasting, we can go there. Or even basic astrology stuff, or even getting yourself organized for your astrology business. The idea is that astrological coaching will answer your particular questions. It's tailored specifically to you and where you are in your astrological journey. And I'm happy to help you out with some guidance about how you can get going, what to focus on, and what to dismiss. So that would be the astrological coaching for people trying to learn astrology. The second astrological service I offer is consultations. So this is for someone who perhaps doesn't know anything about astrology, but they just want to have their chart read or get their chart done. Call it what you will. So once more, this is a 1-hour consultation over Zoom. I will interpret your chart, tell you about the main features, tell you about where the energy is flowing, and all the rest of what is entailed in a thorough natal chart interpretation. I can also add in some forecasting in there too, bearing in mind we only have 1 hour. So just in summary, I've got coaching for people who want to learn astrology, and I've got consultations for those who want to get an astrology reading done. I'm Alison Price from Starzology.com. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time.